Hello, and welcome to the ABYMP Media Project Mini Film Fest, brought to you by Acton TV. The first film we have is The Wannabe Gangster, created by Adarsh and Jason. The second film, Fabrice, is created by Arhan and Lucia. Today, we have 4 judges with us: Patrick, Ben, Eli, and Teddy. Alright, we have just finished watching the first film, and now we hand it off to Teddy.
All right, so using the 3 criteria, editing, writing, and use of prompt. So what I would first say about it is the post-editing, what with especially the intro we saw there with the black screen and really cool theme song. I thought the post-editing was really good. But what I would criticize that, however, is it did, in some places, especially like the fight scene, it did appear kind of janky when it lined up with the actual thing. So I gave editing a decent score. In terms of writing, I thought the plot was kind of confusing, and I didn't really understand it very well. For example, the old man, he gave them a phone number, but then he just sort of appears in Lucia's office. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but I was able to get the general gist, so I gave that sort of a median score. Use of prompt was 6. I'm just going to say that outright. But what else I'd say is the swords and all the other ones, they were fine. They were fine usage. But I thought they could have done something a little more interesting with the Coke bottle. So yeah, I gave that more of an average score.
That was you with the Coke bottle.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like that was just thrown in there, like, oh, we need this in there.
Yeah.
So, anybody have anything to say?
I definitely agree with some of your opinions,
Okay.
and I disagree on some of them.
Okay.
But I'll save some of that for when I speak on it.
Alright, so I guess we'll hand it off to Eli right now.
Alright, so as far as editing, I mean, it was pretty good for the amount of time that was given to do all the editing, writing, and I would say that it's pretty well done. I wouldn't expect a whole lot more from it, so I gave it a pretty good score. As far as the writing, I didn't really know what was going on at basically any point of the film, which, I understand that it's a short film. As far as the use of the prompts, they were just, the line was a little bit awkward to put in there. I don't really feel like it went with the writing too well. It felt a little bit forced, but as far as the props, they were used pretty well. Yeah.
As far as the props, what do you think about the Coke bottle usage?
I think it just blends into the scene,
All
which
right, I guess
is
that makes
what
sense.
should be done with it, so.
All right.
Thank you, Teddy and Eli. We'll move on to Ben right now.
Okay, well, I would say for editing and writing, like in the editing and writing standpoint, it would both be like a 5, around 5-ish. Well, because again, it seemed a bit rushed, which kind of was for both the editing and writing standpoint. As for the use of prompt, I would probably say this would be the only deviant from the deviancy from the whole 5, kind of the neutral 5 area, which would be like a 3 because of how the line deliveries were kind of, except for Lucia, who was a bit frantic, I would say. Would that be considered frantic? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
good
think
word.
Lucia did well with what she was provided with.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with that.
But as for like the last scene, it was more like dry and kind of like
Mm-hmm.
kind of deadpan most of the
A
time.
little forced.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There was a tiny bit of emotion, but not much to really speak on. Other than that, yeah, it'd probably just still be a 3.
As far as characters, I definitely felt like it was a little dry, except for Lucia. I could really feel the crazy energy coming from her.
I have to say I liked the characters in that there was a difference between them. You get the sense with the opening scene that you're in kind of a seedy place, and then at the end, well, this sort of goes into my opinion of it. So are you all set, Ben?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Patrick, you could go on now.
All right. So my opinion is, so for the editing, yeah, I would give it a good. I mean, the timing and the flow of it was good. There's not really a part for cinematography, but I give some of the shots, like the over-the-shoulder following shot of Jason into the office with Lucia was very well done. That was well filmed. The keying was a little bit too much on the scene with Jason and Teddy because it was, you could see through a little bit, but nevertheless, it still worked in terms of their proportions with the background environment, and that's often a difficult thing to get right when using the green screen. Sound effects were good. I think that the sound effect for Lucia getting knocked out was the right amount of noticeable but not being silly. So I give it high scores for editing. Writing is I'm a little bit torn on because I do agree it was rather confusing. However, I also liked that there was an element of mystery to it. I felt like I could understand well enough that, like, okay, every scene leads into the next one. All right, so it's like, all right, he's on the streets, he's out of a job, he's looking for his next thing. He meets someone who gives him information. Now we're allowed as the audience to fill in the blanks of how he went and got that information. I'm not sure why he was led there. I don't know how much I need to know that. His decision to, well, I think he was acting in self-defense with Lucia, which makes that bit of cruelty a little more understandable because she was going to stab him and he just knocked her over the head with that. So
Yeah, but then he proceeded to loot her
yeah,
areas
so
of
that
her.
at that point I would have liked to get a better sense of where he's coming from as a character, like, and what his motivation is. But that did lead into the final scene, so I thought it had a nice structure. I mean, for a 2-minute film, it actually had like a 3-act structure, which is impressive, because that's kind of hard to do with such a short format. But there were some holes in it, but all around, I give that a fairly high score. I loved the way that the line was worked in. Personally, I felt that it worked, and I liked the sort of deadpan delivery of it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
There was a moment where I think there was a leftover bit of action in the audio, I think. when
Oh
Lucy
yeah,
yelled
yeah.
action.
There was
So there
a
was
point.
that.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah,
that was
I
I
thinking
forgot
that.
about that, but
Yeah.
I did hear someone say
So-
action.
Does anybody have any final comments to say?
I think that it was, we kind of have to consider with these films the fact that they are put together with randomly supplied prompts on a very, very ad hoc, short-term basis. And
Yeah.
I think especially when you add that into the consideration, I think that they did an impressive job putting it together.
All right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that basically, I think the writing could have been better given a little bit more time, and I think definitely with a little bit more feedback and a little bit more like time worked on it, I think that a lot of the problems, for example, like the janky shots that sometimes happened, and the bits where, and some of the pieces where they're, the awkward bits of dialogue and the acting. I think with a little bit more time that could have been done, and I think that the writing, there was something in there with the writing, and I think
I just think some things needed to be clarified a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So thanks guys for your criticism and explanations, and I guess we'll move on to the next film. Fabrice, hello, we're back at it again. We've just finished the final film, Fabrice, and now we'll be starting off with Teddy.
So, now the editing, it was kind of minimalist, but I did like the thing they did with the, I don't know what they did. They did the lighting thing around them.
The light
lantern.
effects. of the
Yeah, I thought that
lantern.
was creative
Yeah.
in showing the thing. In terms of the writing, I thought it made a lot more sense than the last one. I think I think it's easier to know, oh yeah, they're like on a map, that makes sense, But one of the things I had a little gripe with was when she fell down, I was a little confused, like, Hang on, what is this supposed to represent? What's going on here?
It represents someone falling down.
Yeah.
But what did she fall down for? What was the point of her
Tripped.
falling down?
Yeah, probably.
And
Gravity
how did that?
kind of pulled her down.
Also, how did she not
I
see
like
the
that
Febreze
explanation.
can? Okay, and also on that second shot, again, they said action in the shot. They didn't cut that out. So I'm gonna give editing. I'm gonna give editing an average score because I think I'm kind of torn.
Okay.
Sin-
Yeah, you still have to explain the use of prompt.
Oh crap! Yeah.
Alright.
Oh
But
yeah.
there was
So in terms of the writing, I thought the writing was pretty good. Honestly, it was quick. It was to the point, and we kind of knew what was going on. They're on a trip. They're getting a free breeze scan. You know what's happening.
I feel like this is a bit biased.
Okay.
He's in
yeah.
both films.
That's
so.
true. He was in both films, so
Yeah.
he's equally biased.
So what I'd say, and I think, in terms of the use of prompt, I think that free breeze can was creative use of that. I give that a high score, and I also really liked how they implemented the lantern into it. I generally like how they implemented everything in terms of the prompt.
Thanks, Teddy. I guess we can move on to Eli now.
Cool. As far as editing, I think it was really well done. All the editing seemed to be placed in where it belonged, and I think it wasn't minimalist because there's no reason why they had to put that light on the lantern, but it was a really nice touch and it was really creative. I don't think it needed a lot of editing, which was good. What Teddy said is true. There is a part where they do say action in it, but honestly, I think that just contributes to it being funny, as mocking infomercials. The writing, I think it was pretty spot on. There wasn't really anything that felt awkward or forced about it. Well, not any more than it should have, being making fun of an infomercial, which they're known to be awkward. Use of the prompt, I mean, both prompts were basically Febreze centered, and the entire film is Febreze centered. The lantern goes in well, it feels fine. Not really good or bad use of it, but it's cool that it's there. Yeah, I think it overall is really well made.
I'd like to comment that I think that the sentence that you just spoke might be the first time that anybody has ever said that about a film in history.
What?
What?
You said the entire film is Febreze focused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
I
say
just-
so.
I think that might be a new one in the annals of cinema history.
Yeah, I look to create things that nobody's done before.
All right, so any more comments on what Eli said?
All right.
All right, I guess we can move on to Ben now.
Okay. All right. So let's start this off. Let's start with editing. Editing, it was good at some points, except for the point where they edited the light around the
Oh, the
Lantern.
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 Yeah.
around the lantern. It looked a bit jarring, I guess. Ruined my immersion.
I kind of just a comment. I liked the lantern, but it was like, if it were actually a light that was on in the lantern, it probably wouldn't have actually generated that level of luminance.
Yeah.
Like, so I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. I would give that like 4.5, I guess.
Mm.
I'm being cruel with this one. Let's see, writing. I guess it's not something to write home about. No, I'm just kidding. It was okay. I would say probably like a 7 or 8 on a good day.
Well, what kind of day is today?
Anyways, use of prompt would probably be, non-existent.
What?
Didn't they not use the prompt?
No, they used
The
it.
That's
prompt
what you
was
What was the prompt?
Febreze.
Well, the prompt, the line is you can't just leave, which they did use because Arhan
Oh.
said that when Lucio was about to leave.
They worked that in pretty well.
Okay, never mind. Due to a lack of evidence on my part, I would probably say It is a 3. No, just kidding. It's a 5.
Okay.
I'm going neutral with this one. I don't know. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And scene.
You got any comments for Ben?
Yeah, I'd say so. I really like the way they worked in the prompt personally, but you can keep that opinion. I thought that
Another thing I wanted to touch upon was Teddy. So you just showed up in the ending. I wanted to see what you guys thought about that.
I mean, the one thing I can say about this film is that it's very creative. It's not working within any pre-existing framework, except, as everyone has mentioned, which I didn't even think about before, it works on a level of a parody of infomercials, but it doesn't start out that way. It made me laugh. It made me laugh in the way that something makes you laugh because of how unexpected it is.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the line, "A breezy can for a breezy man," because that's a terrible line. But I
Just
like it.
what I'd
It's clever.
expect.
But I mean, in the standpoint of if you were going to market Febreze, that would be a terrible line.
I know.
For one thing, it's needlessly gendered.
I
And
know.
for another thing,
It's
referring
perfect.
to something as a can when you're trying to make it sound fragrant and nice, the word can just sounds like, I don't know.
I know it's horrible, but it's funny.
So in that sense, no, that's what I mean. In that sense,
I have a comment
liked
about
it.
what you just
I think
said.
I think that it ends the film as definitively as it could possibly have ended. I'm not really sure what to make of the fact that they're like writhing around in pain from it.
Yeah, that was a little janky.
I don't know. I appreciate the fact that there's a Teddy Spaghetti character in each film, because he's the only non-team member to appear in each of them. So it might as well be that's equalized, and I like to think that they're in the shared same universe, and so for
Yeah.
some reason I like to think that's actually the same character.
The homeless guy does acting gigs.
Yeah, the only thing is, this would be a subject for another debate, is which occurs first.
Mm.
But that's getting far beyond your original point.
Maybe I
Yeah.
was an actor, but when the breezy can thing failed, I was put on the streets.
Oh, maybe you were
You
fired for
invested
that
all of your
slogan.
money
Yeah.
into creating that film.
So I thought the use of prompt was pretty creative. I think that the kind of usage, how they worked in the lantern with the editing, I thought that was pretty creative, like how the lantern was the explanation for the kind of haze around them. And I think that they really, personally, when I made the prompts, I thought that the prompts and the object should be center parts of the film, and I think they did that very, very well. So that's, personally, I will be scoring use of prompt higher, but I understand what you come from.
I have a comment. One last one, I guess.
Okay.
I did not like the ending line, so I had to take away some points for the writing aspect.
All right.
So now it is in the negatives. It is like negative infinity, my guy. Sorry to say, but that joke was so bad I couldn't bear it anymore.
For someone who shows me terrible jokes, I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was that bad. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
But in all seriousness, I'd probably give it like a -2 at that point.
For writing, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Pat,
Vicious.
do you have any
Damn.
comments for?
All right. So my comments. Editing. I'm going to give them, more than anything, I'm going to give them the most credit as far as the editing, because that involved keyframing. I do think that the light was a little bit exaggerated as far as what it would look like, but I also thought it looked cool, and it really put in a lot of effort where they didn't necessarily they didn't need to do that, but they added that in for that shot, and the motion of it was pretty darn good. Like, they maybe, if they'd had a little more time, they could have tracked it a little more, but the way that they did that, I thought worked out really well. Yeah, they did yell action again, so that's obviously any points off. The only thing that I didn't even consider that was brought up by my fellow judges was the fact that it's a comedy, and it makes it funnier. Another point that I would notice about the editing, which made me laugh the more than anything, is the point where Arhan clearly didn't mean to drop the light so that the whole thing
Yeah.
broke, and then it instantly cuts to the next part of it. I don't know whether to take away points or add them, because comedically that just works and it made me laugh, but technically it's a huge mistake. It's a continuity error and a jump cut at the same time, which is just two huge no's in film editing at once, and
Yeah.
definitely speaks to the short time span. So I would give it I will give it like probably the same score as the Wannabe Gangster for that. There's some things I think that work in its favor that were probably not intentional, but that do work. The timing is good. I'll give them also credit for the timing. The timing in between when it ends, there's just enough of a spot of black where you're like, oh, is this the ending? To wait a minute, this is what we were moving towards the whole time. The writing, this made no sense and really didn't have much writing at all. I like that Lucia says it might hear us because the line makes no sense and it implies that they're in this dystopian world and they are wearing masks, so that kind of works. So like I
Yeah.
thought that was a good thing to add.
Oh my God, are we in a
The
dystopia?
last Febreze can.
Are we?
Yeah, oh, the last Febreze can. Now that's an interesting question. All around, this film was weird for the sake of weird, which sometimes can be a lazy approach, but I think that they pulled it off in such a way that it genuinely worked. Like, this film makes me laugh, especially because it's
Yeah.
under 1 minute. I think if this film were any longer than 56 seconds, it would wear out its welcome. But I
Yeah.
think at 56 seconds, it's definitely rewatchable, and I give them high props for that. Use of prompt. What are you gonna do? Your prompt involves Febreze as a prop. I guess I give them credit for really growing with it, because they could have just used it on a sideline way, but they made the whole thing like an ad for Febreze, which it is a product, so in a way that's kind of lazy, but it makes sense. You go for what you have there. So yeah, this honestly, my scores are close. I would rate these. Some of them have different strengths than the others. I think the Wannabe Gangster was more thought out and had more of that like 3-act structure. And this one was clearly more just like done within probably 30 or 40 minutes, which I know it literally was because Arhan had to leave early that day, and a lot of the film was structured around that. So yeah, anyways, that's it for me.
We just finished our criticism of both of the films. And now, the scores.
So for the first film one, I gave it 7 for editing, a 6 for writing, and a 7 for use of prompt. And for the second one, I gave it a 6 for editing, a 6.5 for writing, and an 8 for use of prompt. My full score for number 1 would be 20. And my full score for number 2 would be 20.5.
All right. For the first film, I'll just do it individually first. The editing, I gave it a 5. I was rather impartial on it. It was fine. The writing really just confused me, so I ended up giving it a 2. I just didn't. I didn't really understand what they were trying to do. The only reason I really got any of it was because I had to ask what happened. The use of prompt was a 6. I think it was okay. They blended in fine, but didn't really do a ton with them. For the second film, I gave the editing.
What was your full total score for the
first is 13.
Okay.
The second one, the editing, I don't think it really needed to do a whole lot more. The editing with the lamp was welcome, even though it wasn't needed. So I took away points for the lamp in use of prompt. But as far as editing, I think it was good. So I gave editing an 8. The writing, it was what it was going for, really, I can't really say a whole lot more about it, so I gave that a 9. And then the use of prompt, I think Febreze, it's pretty hard not to give that a really good score because Febreze is the entire film. And the lamp I just took off 2 points for because I didn't really feel it was necessary and it didn't really flow as well. So I gave it an 8. Overall, I gave it 25.
Okay.
Not bad.
Let's see. Let me look at my phone. So I would say for the first one, probably like a 15 or like 16 maybe. While the second one would probably be around a negative 2. No, I'm just kidding. Probably like probably a 10. I've already. You could probably do the math already because I've already said the grading already. So
Okay.
Patrick,
Wait,
you wanna
is
share?
it 16 or 15?
for the first one, it's probably like around 16 or 15.
You have to say one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 point. Yeah, good call. 15.5.
All right, Patrick, you wanna share the final?
All right, yeah.
scores?
So for the first one, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give the editing an 8. It was just all around generally competent and well done. It wasn't without some things that I think could have been improved upon, but at the same time, I think that given the amount of time that was had to work on it, I thought that there were no major mistakes. The green screen was handled pretty well. And the pacing of it was good, and the sound effect balance, the audio balance wasn't bad. So I'm going to give that a solid 8. Writing, I'm going to give a 7. I liked the story well enough, but I would have liked to have gotten a little more sense of character motivation. Use of prompt, I'm going to give it a 10. I really enjoyed the way the line worked, and I felt like all the props in it were used pretty well. It clearly had a crime family type theme. I think that it was just all integrated in a way that didn't feel forced. And yeah, I thought that was just fine. So that is a 10 plus 8 equals 18 plus 7 equals 25. Film 2, editing, I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt in that, like, the editing, there's more mistakes in this as far as editing, but I think the mistakes also work to the film's benefit. Yeah, writing, I'm going to give it 5, because there really wasn't any writing, but what's there works well enough. Writing, I gave editing a 7, writing a 5. Use of prompt, I guess I'll give that an 8, because it was good. It was yeah. 8 plus 7 equals 15 plus 5 equals 20. So I give it a 20.
Okay. So, the winner of the AB Youth Media Project
There's a winner.
2020 Mini Film Fest is, can we get a drum roll? Is Film 2 Febreze.
Okay.
Congratulations, Febreze.
That concludes our show. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Is that right?